Hello, powerful Scorpio. As August 29th, 2026 unfolds, something inside you may feel ready to move. But this time, the deeper question is not whether you have enough strength to act. You already do. The real question is whether you can recognize which direction truly deserves your intensity, your attention, and your trust. Lately, you may have felt unsettled, emotionally restless, or as though something beneath the surface has been asking you to make a decision. You may sense that a situation is changing even before there is visible evidence of it. You may feel ready to close one chapter, protect yourself from something that no longer feels right, or finally move towards something you have been considering quietly for some time. But that feeling does not automatically mean that something is wrong. Sometimes restlessness appears when an old way of moving forward has reached the point where it can no longer carry you. Before making your next decision, give yourself enough space to understand what is actually driving you. You naturally know how to look beneath the surface, recognize hidden motives, and sense when something is not being said openly. But there is a difference between intuition and allowing suspicion or emotional pressure to make the decision for you. If you have been feeling guarded, impatient, or unusually determined to uncover an answer immediately, pause for a moment and listen to what is underneath that impulse. The goal is not to weaken your intensity, Scorpio. It is to keep that intensity focused enough to reveal the truth instead of exhausting your energy through constant questioning, testing, or trying to control what has not yet become clear. There may be moments around August 29th when you realize that pushing harder is not automatically the same as making progress. You may already have invested significant emotional or practical effort into something and expected that effort to produce a visible result by now. Yet circumstances may be moving according to a different rhythm. That can be especially frustrating for Scorpio because once you commit yourself to something, you rarely do it halfway. You can become deeply invested in a person, a goal, a relationship, or a plan, and when the outcome does not appear as quickly as you expected, it may be difficult to simply step back. But some situations cannot be forced into readiness simply because you are emotionally ready for an answer. Instead of trying to control every outcome, ask yourself what part of the situation actually belongs to you. Then place your strength there. This is where a different kind of courage begins to appear. You may be invited to consider an opportunity, a change in direction, or a new approach to something you have been trying to solve. You may not have every answer yet, and that is okay. Saying yes does not mean revealing everything or abandoning your instincts. It means recognizing when a door deserves your attention and then choosing your next step with intention. If you have been waiting for movement, allow that movement to begin through a clear decision rather than through emotional pressure. Because sometimes the strongest action is the one that comes after you stop fighting internally with what you already know. And if something becomes difficult along the way, do not measure your worth by how intensely you can endure it. A difficult moment can reveal something much more important than whether you are strong enough to survive another challenge. It can reveal what you are actually willing to spend your strength on. The real question may not be whether you can overcome another obstacle. It may be whether that obstacle is teaching you to become wiser about where you place your effort. Some battles deserve your full attention. Others only become exhausting because you keep trying to prove that you can control the outcome. Your time and energy matter, Scorpio. You may sometimes pour yourself into protecting, investigating, repairing, defending, or carrying situations that were never meant to become your responsibility. Especially when you believe that one more conversation, one more explanation, or one more effort might finally change everything. But there comes a point when persistence stops being devotion and starts becoming depletion. If a person, environment, or repeated situation constantly leaves you feeling as though you have to protect your peace by staying alert all the time, stepping back is not weakness. It is a decision about what your energy is worth. Boundaries may become especially important now. You do not have to respond to every challenge, answer every provocation, reveal every thought, or explain every decision simply because someone expects access to your attention. There is strength in knowing when to engage and when to leave something alone. Not every secret needs to be uncovered immediately. Not every closed door needs to be forced open. Your purpose is not served by spending your intensity everywhere at once. Notice what genuinely supports your growth and what only keeps you trapped in a cycle of reaction. As you move through August 29th, let your definition of progress become more thoughtful. You may actually be closer to an important goal than you realize. But being close does not mean you need to immediately chase another target the moment something begins to go well. You feel momentum returning, and suddenly you want to accelerate again, investigate further, make another decision, or push a situation to its final conclusion. Let yourself appreciate the progress. Lasting momentum requires pacing, attention, and the willingness to build instead of constantly beginning again. You are proving your worth through what you choose, what you sustain, and what you are willing to walk away from. That carries more weight than outside approval ever could. If something you have worked toward begins to take shape, allow yourself to feel proud without turning that pride into pressure to accomplish even more immediately. You can acknowledge how far you have come while still remaining focused on what needs your care next. Confidence becomes steadier when it no longer depends on constantly proving that you were right. There is also something important about sharing your progress with the people who have been part of your journey. You may hope that everyone around you will understand your excitement or recognize how much effort, patience, and emotional strength went into what you accomplished. But people are moving through their own circumstances, fears, and seasons. If someone does not celebrate exactly as you imagined, try not to automatically interpret that as rejection or as a judgment of your success. Your growth can quietly inspire another person without requiring them to stand beside you in exactly the same way. And sometimes the healthiest response is simply to let your progress speak for itself. As you continue forward, do not let determination make you forget the things that keep you strong enough to continue. Rest, nourishment, recovery, and quiet time are not distractions from your goals. They are part of how you sustain them. The point is not simply to reach the place you have been fighting toward. It is to have enough strength left within you to actually live there. Your intensity needs fuel, Scorpio. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is step back long enough to make sure you are not exhausting yourself simply to prove that you can keep going. Across August 29th, 2026, the deeper emotional theme is about seeing what has been hidden beneath your urgency and deciding what genuinely deserves your attention. The star appears as a symbol of renewed perspective after a period when you may have questioned your direction. Its message is not simply to hope that everything becomes better. It is to connect hope with honest self-awareness. Instead of waiting for someone outside of you to confirm that you are on the right path, notice what brings you a quiet sense of purpose. Clarity does not always arrive as a dramatic answer. Sometimes clarity is simply realizing that one path no longer feels worth forcing. The star also speaks to the part of you that may have become tired of carrying disappointment as though disappointment were proof that you needed to try harder. You can acknowledge what hurt without allowing it to dictate your next move. If something in your personal life has caused you to question yourself, give yourself room to recover your confidence without turning healing into another task you must complete perfectly. Your vulnerability does not make you less powerful, Scorpio. It gives you information about what matters, what has changed, and where your strength can now be used more wisely. Then comes the Wheel of Fortune, bringing movement and changing circumstances. Its message is not that everything will suddenly turn in your favor. Instead, it reminds you that no situation remains frozen forever. Something that has felt stalled or uncertain may begin to shift. Your role is not to control every turn of the wheel. Your role is to recognize when the landscape changes and respond without clinging to the strategy that worked yesterday. For a Scorpio who naturally prefers to understand what is happening beneath the surface, this can become a meaningful lesson in flexibility. Sometimes progress comes from knowing when to adjust your direction rather than continuing to push against circumstances that are already changing. The Magician then brings your attention back to what is already in your hands. You may have more resources, experience, intuition, courage, creativity, practical ability, and influence than you have been giving yourself credit for. But having the tools is only part of the equation. The deeper question is how intentionally you use them. The magician represents the moment when you stop waiting for perfect conditions and begin working with what is actually available. An idea can become a plan. A conversation can become a decision. A frustration can become a more useful form of action. For you, Scorpio, the message is not about forcing reality to obey your wishes. It is about directing your energy instead of scattering it. If you have been trying to solve everything at once, choose one meaningful priority and give it your full attention. This is especially important in relationships. Say what you need to say, but also create enough space to hear what another person needs from you. Real confidence does not require you to know everything before another person has finished speaking. The Four of Wands brings a softer dimension into your love life, pointing toward stability, belonging, celebration, and the foundations you are building with another person. You may desire something that feels emotionally deep without becoming overwhelming, passionate without becoming unstable, and secure without requiring constant proof. If you are in a relationship, there may be value in creating moments where neither person has to solve anything, win an argument, investigate the past, or decide what comes next. Sometimes closeness grows through ordinary things. Sharing a meal, taking a walk, having an honest conversation, simply allowing another person to feel heard. If you are single, the same symbolism asks you to examine how quickly you move toward emotional intensity. Attraction can create an immediate spark, but a lasting connection needs time to reveal its character. You may be comfortable sensing whether someone has depth, and that intuition can serve you well. But there is another kind of courage in slowing down enough to discover whether someone can actually meet you where you are. You do not have to extinguish the spark. Give it enough time to show whether it can become a steady flame. The Emperor then brings structure into the story, and this is especially meaningful for Scorpio. Real leadership is not about controlling every variable or proving that you are the strongest person in the room. It is about making clear decisions, establishing healthy boundaries, accepting responsibility for your choices, and knowing when discipline will serve you better than force. The more consciously you direct your energy, the less you need to react to every obstacle that appears in front of you. This same principle matters for your health. Rather than treating your body as something that simply has to keep up with your ambitions and responsibilities, pay attention to whether your pace is sustainable. If you have been staying mentally active for too long, delaying rest, rushing through meals, ignoring fatigue, or treating recovery as something you will handle later, your body may be asking for a different rhythm. You do not need to become rigid about wellness, but consistency in sleep, nourishment, movement, and downtime can help you protect the energy you need for everything else. The goal is balance without turning balance into another performance. Enjoy what you enjoy, work toward what matters, and give yourself permission to slow down when your body asks for it. A strong foundation still needs maintenance, and your emotional strength works the same way. If you want your momentum to last, respect the conditions that allow you to keep moving with a clear mind and a steady sense of yourself. When it comes to work, communication from a supervisor, manager, teacher, or another person in a position of authority could challenge your first reaction. If you have been working hard, criticism or even a simple question about your performance may initially feel more personal than it actually is. Before pushing back, becoming defensive, or deciding that someone is questioning your ability, pause and ask what the feedback is actually pointing toward. There may simply be something that needs clarification, a habit that could be improved, or a priority that has become blurred because you have been carrying too many goals at once. Your ability to concentrate deeply can be one of your greatest professional strengths, but it can also make you resistant when someone tries to redirect your attention. Listen carefully. Take what is useful. Then decide what needs to change rather than reacting from pride. Adapting your strategy does not make you less capable. It shows that your ambition is becoming more disciplined. If you have been searching for work, building a project, or waiting for someone to recognize what you can offer, the lack of an immediate result does not necessarily mean the opportunity is gone. Sometimes the position you wanted was simply too narrow for the person you are becoming. What looked like a delay may have been giving you room to reconsider what kind of work would actually allow your strengths to grow. This is where your natural determination can become especially valuable. Instead of waiting indefinitely for someone else to open the right door, consider whether there is another route you can create for yourself. You do not need to make a reckless leap simply to prove that you are capable of independence. But you can begin gathering the pieces of something that belongs to you. There may be abilities you have left unused because you were focused on one particular path, and rediscovering them could change the way you see your options. When it comes to finances, August 29th carries a theme of reassessment rather than a promise of sudden fortune. You may notice something about the way you have been handling money, resources, commitments, or long-term plans that deserves another look. That realization may be more valuable than a temporary windfall. The Wheel of Fortune reminds you symbolically that circumstances change, but it also asks you to remain adaptable enough to respond when they do. The star brings clearer perspective. If uncertainty has made you question whether your efforts are leading anywhere, this is an opportunity to replace vague hope with a more practical sense of direction. Think about what you are building. Think about where your resources are going. Ask whether your current choices support the kind of stability you actually want. You do not need to chase every possibility simply because it appears exciting. Sometimes abundance begins by recognizing which opportunities deserve deeper commitment and which ones are only distracting you from the plan that already matters. The Magician reinforces your ability to work with what you already possess. Your ideas, skills, experience, intuition, creativity, contacts, and willingness to begin are all resources. But they become useful when you organize them around a clear purpose. Turn the spark into structure. Turn the idea into steps. Allow your determination to become something tangible rather than scattering itself across too many possibilities at once. The Four of Wands then shifts the financial message toward foundations. Whether you are working independently, collaborating with others, saving towards something important, or simply trying to create greater stability, the strongest progress is often built through choices that can support you over time. The Emperor adds discipline to that picture. You do not need to control everything, but you do need to know what you are responsible for, what you are willing to commit to, and where stronger boundaries around your resources may be necessary. In love, there is another important adjustment. When you become focused on protecting yourself, achieving personal goals, or making sure you can handle everything on your own, it can be surprisingly easy to overlook what is happening emotionally between you and another person. If you have noticed distance in a relationship, resist the urge to treat it as another problem that needs to be solved as quickly as possible. Instead, slow down enough to ask questions. Listen without preparing your defense, and let the other person tell you what their experience has been. Sometimes reconnection does not require a grand gesture. It can begin with dinner without distractions, a walk where neither of you is rushing toward the next task, or a simple conversation in which you are genuinely present instead of trying to control the outcome. You may be accustomed to showing love by taking action, protecting the people you care about, solving problems, or making sure nothing threatens the relationship. But emotional intimacy also requires receptiveness. Let someone contribute to the relationship in their own way. Because partnership becomes stronger when it is not always one person protecting and the other person depending on that protection. If you are single, this period may ask you to examine the difference between being ready for connection and being impatient for certainty. You may recognize an attraction or sense that an opportunity for connection is available. But you do not need to turn that feeling into an immediate conclusion about where it is going. A simple invitation, an honest conversation, or an unexpected interaction can create movement, but allow the other person enough room to reveal themselves as well. Your intuition can open the door. Patience helps you discover whether there is actually something worth walking toward. Do not let the fear of being hurt convince you that you have to remain completely closed. But do not let excitement make the choice for you either. Scorpio energy is powerful when it moves from trust and conviction rather than from the discomfort of uncertainty. If there is genuine interest, explore it. If there is mutual effort, give it room to develop. And if you repeatedly find yourself carrying the entire connection alone, pay attention to that pattern instead of trying to compensate for it with even more emotional effort. Family brings a different kind of lesson because you cannot always approach familiar relationships with the same intensity you would use to handle a personal goal. Misunderstandings may become easier to address when you are willing to listen before deciding what everyone should do next. The star can symbolize renewed hope within these relationships. While the Wheel of Fortune reflects the reality that family dynamics change as people grow, mature, and move through different circumstances, you may not be able to control how everyone responds, but you can choose the quality of your own participation. The magician here becomes intentional communication. Instead of waiting for everyone to somehow understand what you mean, say what you need clearly and give others enough space to respond in their own way. The Four of Wands brings attention to the warmth created when people remember what they share rather than focusing only on old disagreements. While the Emperor reminds you that healthy family relationships still require boundaries. You can love someone deeply without allowing every conflict, demand, or expectation to dictate your choices. And sometimes the most constructive form of strength is knowing when to speak firmly and when to let another person find their own way. As for your personal energy, there may be a strong sense of intensity around you. Your motivation may be returning, and you may finally feel ready to tackle something you have been postponing. Yet that is precisely when pacing becomes important. A pause is not a surrender of momentum. Sometimes it is where you gather enough clarity to make your next move cleaner, stronger, and more effective. Pay attention when your body begins asking for recovery, even if your mind insists that you still have more to accomplish. Exhaustion does not become less real simply because you have an important goal. And ignoring small signals for too long can make it much harder to recognize what you actually need. The healthiest version of your ambition is not the one that keeps pushing until there is nothing left. It is the one that knows when to restore its strength so that the next step comes from capacity rather than depletion. There is also a constructive opportunity here to begin something you have been thinking about for a while. If a project, conversation, application, creative idea, or personal decision has remained on your mind, consider what one deliberate action would move it out of your head and into reality. You do not need to solve the entire path at once. Take the step that genuinely belongs in front of you. Then let the next piece become visible through experience rather than demanding that you know everything before you begin. At the same time, be careful with extremes. Excessive emotional intensity can make you act before you have all the information, while excessive caution can make you remain in a situation long after you already know it needs to change. Your strength during this period comes from holding both sides, the courage to move and the discipline to reflect. You are not being asked to become less passionate. You are learning how to make your passion useful. For students, this same principle applies to learning. Your concentration, determination, and ability to investigate deeply can help you stand out. But real growth also requires humility. Someone else may see something you missed. If you are working with classmates or participating in an academic team, listen to other perspectives before deciding that your approach is automatically the strongest one. Giving someone else room to contribute does not diminish your authority. It expands the information available to you and can make your own thinking more precise. Knowledge also becomes deeper when you are genuinely curious rather than simply trying to complete an assignment or achieve a particular result. The information you engage with meaningfully has a better chance of becoming something you can actually use because you are connecting ideas instead of merely collecting them. Let your determination help you learn, but allow curiosity to challenge you as well, especially when another person's perspective reveals a part of the subject you had not considered before. And when it comes to compatibility, 3 signs may bring especially useful qualities into your awareness during this period, not as fixed predictions, but as symbolic reflections of qualities that can complement your Scorpio nature. Virgo can teach you the power of precision and consistency. You may naturally want to understand what is happening beneath the surface, while Virgo energy reminds you that sometimes the strongest move is to focus on the practical details directly in front of you. Someone with strong Virgo qualities may show you how much can change when you stop carrying every emotional possibility and concentrate on the small actions that eventually create stability. Aries brings another lesson through courage and initiative. Scorpio energy can be deeply strategic, while Aries reminds you that sometimes you learn what you need to know only after taking the first step. Someone with strong Aries qualities may encourage you to move beyond hesitation and trust your ability to adjust along the way. Capricorn offers another lesson that may be especially valuable for you.